United States submarine base at Key West, Florida. A dispatch that quoted President Truman's press secretary, Charles Ross, as saying that President Truman has no knowledge of any secret project by this government that would give substance to the existence of such objects. Ross also said that both the Air Force and the Navy deny that such objects exist.
Crunching so loud. God damn it.
You've had so much time to swallow the food in your mouth. I don't feel bad.
I haven't.
I said
it's
we're
fucking
gonna
granola too. It's like the loudest thing.
I will say you were like, I wanted to go to bed early tonight, and I was like, I'll shut up and record. And then the second I hit record, you just opened your mouth like a duck and just consumed as much granola as you possibly could.
This shit's so good. Love it. It's maple pecan with real pecans and real maple. I love it. My favorite snack.
My favorite snack is... I don't think I have a favorite snack.
Yes, you do. What's that weird thing that you eat? The hot M&Ms?
Yeah.
That's fucking gross. Anyway, hey, what's up? My name is Noelle, and I'm so sorry that you all had to hear me chew my whole grain granola.
And I'm Chelsea. I just got back from Tombstone, and I didn't see a single mention about the pterodactyl.
What do you mean?
I was looking. I didn't see it. I went to the museum. I went to the Rose Museum.
Oh, there. I was like, people were talking about it, you idiot. But no, you're talking about an actual
nothing
Tombstone.
in Tombstone.
Also, hold on. My dogs are being ridiculous. I'm going to put myself on mute real quick and yell if you want to keep talking.
Okay, so I don't even know what to say, man. You're just yelling. Noelle's dogs. Like I'm just going to narrate what's happening. Noelle's telling her dogs to go lay down, and they're just jumping around with glee.
They are literally like, no joke, dude. I know that we wanted to go to bed early and get this episode over, but my dogs basically fucking sit around and they sleep and they fart because one of them is old-ish and the other one is a fucking goblin who can't breathe. So all they do is just sit around and they lay around and they move from this lay spot to that lay spot. Mm-hmm. That's all they do all fucking day long, and it's great. But here I am on a fucking 2-hour Zoom call with engineering and product and going over like this big revamp that's happening. And these motherfuckers are tap dancing on the goddamn hardwood. They're literally running and jumping at each other, like chest bumping, like they're fucking titans fighting, like straight up. And I'm seeing it in the background of my Zoom call and obviously hearing it, but I put my volume up so high. So I'm really only seeing it in the background, and I'm trying not to like pay attention to it at all, even though they're literally slamming into each other. And I just see all the little people's faces in the little boxes on the Zoom call, like looking and
all
laughing.
Focusing on your little square. Yeah.
All fucking looking and laughing. And I'm still in the middle of like presenting. So I'm like, and I'm just like, these stupid fuckers are ruining my presentation. Like, I know that everyone is looking at is them fighting, because like Apollo is like on his back 2 legs and he's swinging his
like
arms
a deer.
around. Yeah.
Like how a deer fights.
Cora is running, lunging, and jumping at his fucking throat in her little stupid vest. It's probably a sight to see. And I was like, this is so stupid. And then just now, we hit record, and what do these 2 motherfuckers do? They get all up in my fucking shit. Like, Apollo doesn't give a fuck about me, but the moment we record, he's right here sniffing my balls. And I'm
Maybe
like, get
he
off,
hears
dude.
my voice, and he wants to say hi to me.
He doesn't hear anything besides the sounds of him annoying me.
He is cute.
Anyway.
He looks like he needs something. He looks like he has something to say.
He's just staring at me. He's sitting like a proper boy, staring at the back of my fucking
He's
head.
like a little gargoyle. I can see him perfectly over your shoulder. Like, you'll square up to the computer so you're facing me, and it's just his eyes and ears over the back of your chair.
He's such a piece of shit, man. I'm telling you.
Oh, what a good boy.
Fuck. Anyway, speaking of pieces of shit.
No mention of the pterodactyl in Tombstone. And I went to museum after museum after museum. I was surprised. I was a little sad. They have ghost tours, so you know that they're embracing the other. I was bummed about it. I also asked the mine tour about the goblins. He's like, no goblins. I'm like, well, fuck you then.
Yeah,
it was a great
no
tour, though.
shit, dude. Like, the actual, like, former silver miner isn't gonna jump in the mine with you and be like, the goblins. Yeah, no fucking shit, dog.
I approached him real cool. Like, he was like, okay, so go ahead and take pictures, whatever. And then you let people situate because you move from room to room in the cave. So you let people kind of like duck in and walk. And I was like, hey, man. See what I'm doing with my elbow? It was like, hey, and then he kind of came over, and I got in real close like this,
and coughed COVID all over.
Yeah, I was wearing a mask. I was wearing a mask, and I was like, hey, can I ask you something? OTR, off the record, and he was like, yeah. I was like, you ever heard of like cave goblins in Kentucky? And he said, no. And I said, well, regardless. Do you have any goblin stories from here? And he said no again. And then I was immediately shut down emotionally because I don't often reach out in social situations to like engage people. And I was immediately
punished. But the one time you were was to ask a professional about goblins. That was your time to
immediately
shine.
Rebuked. Oh, I didn't say this on Patreon, but when I was talking about Tombstone, but it was really cool because miners at the time would work by candlelight, and they would only get 2 candles per shift, and the shifts were 10 hours, but the candles only lasted 4 hours. So that math doesn't add up no well. So what they would do is they'd put their little chisel in a hole, and once they'd get a good spot, they'd blow out their candle and then chisel in the dark. And then, which is terrifying. So they had black light that they shone on the walls, and you could see where like they had their demo candle because they would light the candle, and you could see how dark the cave was by candlelight only. And then they like shone up the wall, and you could see candle drippings from like the original miners of the 1800s. It was scary. That was actually scary because they were up on the fucking wall, man.
You know what the scariest part of it all is that workers' rights have always been a problem in this country, and we need to unionize and protect and ensure that miners have enough candles to last at the minimum their entire shift.
Yeah, and the mines were like miles out of town, and they'd have to wake up, walk. Like one of the mines was 5 miles away. They'd have to wake up, walk 5 miles, work 10 hours, and then walk home.
Mm-hmm. This is giving very much like your grandpa being like, back in my day, I had to walk 1 mile. And you're
I only got 2 candles for 10 hours.
Yeah, well, you also bought a 10-bedroom house on 5 acres for a pack of gum and a slap on the ass. So fuck you. Walk.
Yeah, so that's how my grandpa was a saint. How dare you? So yeah, it was very wild. Again, amazing trip. But what I ended up wanting to talk about was some of the bordello ghosts, but I couldn't find enough information to really get into it. And then I somehow stumbled upon Wendigos. So we're gonna talk about those now.
Natural transition.
Yeah, it was a good one, right? I have one single hair in my eyeball. So, Wendigos. These flesh-eating monsters have been woven into our day-to-day mythos, transcending past the written history of the Algonquian Native American tribe. These monsters do vary in appearance and characteristics depending on which rabbit hole of history you fall into, but either way you slice it, the description of them is pretty wild. So in some traditions, they can appear as emaciated beings with antlers on their head and skin stretched thinly across protruding bones. In others, they're strange animals who grow larger and larger as they consume flesh. Their odor precedes their actual appearance, and oftentimes their calls in the wild are confused with those of the skinwalker. And on some accounts, they say that the louder the scream of the Wendigo, the further the scream of the Wendigo, the closer you are to demise. So if it sounds like it's really far away and you're running away from the scream, you're actually running closer to the Wendigo. You want the scream to be close. That means that you're far away.
I'll save that in my pocket for when I never go anywhere that a Wendigo could be.
Ultimately, I would describe them as a very, very starved Krampus.
That's how I've seen them as well.
Yeah. And which is really interesting because they also have tons of associations with the cold. And part of their myth and characteristics is that they can not only walk on water, but they can also walk on snow without leaving any footprints. Like a scary Legolas.
Don't bring Legolas into this.
He's on my mind all the time. So, despite some of the kind of rudimentary differences in appearances, all histories generally agree on the following. You'll smell a Wendigo long before you've seen one, and they are malevolent and cannibalistic, and according to legendsofamerica.com,
Great source.
Thank you, are stronger in northern winters and are closely tied to famine, coldness, and starvation. So they're like dementors. Like a
Absolutely.
Legolas dementor. Not gonna comment on that? I thought that was good.
I think you're
It wasn't
trying,
good.
and I think it's very
Hold on.
valiant.
I'm trying to not drink alcohol in this episode, and I think that's what's fucking me up. So let me just open this beer real quick.
Okay, great job. You know what? I appreciated your Dementors reference, but I am just so over Harry Potter right now because of that transphobic cunt.
Yeah, you gotta separate the JK from the HP.
I can't, dude.
Dude, I love
can't.
Spider-Man, even though Stan Lee tried to claim he wrote it.
Well, I
You
can
gotta separate the
enjoy
creator, yeah.
Spider-Man because Stanley is dead. So, suck on that, Marvel fans, you fucking cucks.
Stanley ripped off everything he ever wrote, except for maybe
Stanley's
like
a
two
little
things.
bitch. Yeah, the Fantastic Four, which sucks.
Oh, show me a good Fantastic Four movie, and I will give you a baby.
Because you can't, so good luck.
Can't. Didn't even have to worry about it. I'm more likely to find evidence of a pterodactyl in Tombstone than I am for you to find evidence that Stan Lee wrote anything he ever claimed except Fantastic Four.
1000%.
So
Anyway.
the earliest known written account of a Wendigo was documented by a Jesuit missionary named Paul de Genoux.
Great job.
I think autocorrect fucked up his last name because that doesn't look familiar. We're just going to call it Paul. In 1636. And as a missionary, Paul was required to update his superiors about the region he was assigned to, which is what we now call modern-day Quebec. And in one of the reports he wrote, quote, "The devilish woman added that the Wendigo had eaten some of the Adamagucan. These are the tribes that live north of the river and is called Three Rivers, and that he would eat a great many more of them if he were not called elsewhere." The Wendigo. It was really interesting because this did go on to say that he thought a werewolf had scared the Wendigo out of the region.
Oh, you clipped the most interesting part of his whole entire transaction.
Well, it was like way down, so it would have been like 8 pages of me reading the quote, and I thought it would detract from the Wendigo.
You could just skip down.
I know, I fucked up. Well, I let
ellipses,
you know now.
and then there.
Yeah, I let you know now.
Okay.
They thought that the Wendigo got scared off by a werewolf, and that's the only reason why it left.
God, you just gotta love that 1636 ideology, baby.
I wish
Keeps
it was
you on
that
your toes.
I wish it was that simple. Don't you? Still?
Yeah. Are you kidding me? There's like a dude who strips copper wire in the back alley and is left to use needles that my dogs have almost stepped on, and a used condom that my dog did eat. I would very much love if a werewolf just scared him out.
Yeah. It would
How
solve so many
easy
problems.
my life would be.
I love dogs too. And that reminds me, I rewatched Jupiter Ascending and that part where she's like, I love dogs. I could see me being that cringy door werewolf. Is it like right before it tore my throat out?
Oh my god, is that a German Shepherd? It's like
It's fucking Cujo mixed with like John Cena. I just like, it's beautiful.
it's a rescue.
Put him in a sweater. You know, take him for a pup cup while he's just like ripping my car to shreds.
I want to see that animated. I want to see a werewolf in the back seat going into Starbucks to get a poop cup.
Oh man, I wish we had like the ability to like have any kind of funding to film that scene where we could get a car and just rip it to shreds.
Dude, I know it. Well, perfect world dreams.
The joys of being poor. So, Paul wasn't the only missionary to write about such encounters, and there are many European missionaries who came after him and reported numerous evil sightings plaguing the New World frontier. And according to the Canadian Encyclopedia, I didn't know they got their own, but that makes sense, right?
Yeah, they're their own country.
These days, well,
I mean, maybe we don't know.
they
We
are.
don't know.
I won't bring in my personal gripes about Canada today.
They are, but like, what is the Queen doing on their currency? So, like, figure it out, Canada.
Because they're weak.
Yeah, who are you, really?
So, and these encounters date all the way up to as recent as the 20th century.
So I would like to add before we get into more lore is I know this is probably based in no other reality other than my own, but wouldn't it be, hear me out, kind of cool if Wendigos were just like M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, and that like natives dressed up as giant monsters to scare white Christian missionaries?
That's smart, honestly.
Wouldn't that be just a silly, goofy mood?
Not just to scare the white missionaries, but also like population control, the problematic ones. So the ones who are like, oh, manifest destiny. So they leave their habit or whatever.
Literally the entire plot of The Village.
It could be The Village. Let's just reimagine The Village as that.
Yeah.
The Village is slept on. I think that he should get more credit for The Village.
Don't you
I'll die on that hill.
Get me started about this, because I have gone to extreme lengths to talk about this online, because you're absolutely right, Chelsea.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Noelle.
It was all about timing that did this film so fucking dirty. There are 2 movies that I watch once a year, every single year, and have without a beat. Number 1, Constantine. Number 2, The Village. And I'll remember back to a time in 2010 and like 2015, where I was getting made fun of when I would be like, oh, I'm going to watch The Village tonight. And they'd be like, you're watching The Village? M. Night Shyamalan, that hack? And I'm like, no, you're the hack, because this movie was fucking great. The casting was great. The story was great. The art direction was great. The cinematography was great. This was one film where, to keep it PG-13, when they had a knife shot, they did like silent screaming, no blood, to keep that rating down, and it was just as powerful. It's incredible. And the twist to this day, it's like original Friday the 13th and then The Village, as far as twists that I could have never seen coming.
Same.
But that's the problem, because everyone got on this movie being like, oh, it's another M. Night Shyamalan plot twist. Da, 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 da. Oh, like, he just follows the same formula. It's so unoriginal. Says who? Says fucking Cookie Monster pajama pants in front of a Walmart screaming online? Fuck you.
If you want to call somebody out for using the same rubric, same formula for everything they produce, Dan Brown of the Da Vinci Code. You read one of his books, you've read all of his books. Give M. Night Shyamalan credit where credit is due.
The Village is perfect. It's a perfect fucking movie.
Dude, don't sleep on Sixth Sense.
Amazing.
And
amazing.
The Village, super good. And you know what? Some of his other movies, like Signs, I just went into a deep dive on Signs, how they were saying all of the aliens were actually like demonic possessions that were going on. And it made a really good case for it. And I was like, seeing Signs in a whole new light. The little girl, he always called her like his angel, and the angel would come down and fucking get holy water all over the house. It wasn't the water that was killing him. It was the holy water that was getting him. And I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Some of it were misses. Lady in the Water, I didn't particularly enjoy. Don't even get me started on Last Airbender. That was terrible. But you know what?
I also would say, like, Old, The Beach Where Everyone Gets Old, not a banger. But, like,
I read the Wikipedia.
Devil? You remember Devil?
Yes.
The elevator? Come on.
Yes, that scared me.
I know.
That scared me. I think I've only seen it once still. I think that scared me so bad.
Dude.
It's like The Village scared the living hell out of me.
The Village is so Signs fundamentally changed me as a person. To this day, haunted by the imagery. The Sixth Sense was one of the most delicious movies I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. And definitely like another twist that I was like, oh. But if you pay attention enough in the Sixth Sense, you can pick it up. The Village, I would have never seen that coming a million miles away. That's why it's fucking beautiful and perfect.
100%. So stop shitting on M. Night Shyamalan's good movies. give him credit that he's trying something new, damn it.
Yeah.
And what else do we want to hate people on for hating? Stop shitting on the prequels to Star Wars. You're a piece of shit. Darth Maul is the
1000%.
best thing that ever happened to all of us.
It's
and
true.
Qui-Gon Jinn, how dare you?
It's true. These are true
And pod
facts.
racing. All right, I gotta stop.
Pod racing is so good. It's the only good thing that came out of the Star Wars video game. It is literally it. The pod racing feature that you can have is the only thing good about that fucking bullshit game.
Pod racing brought to light something that I didn't know I needed, and then it created in me a love of other movies that led me to Nick Cage, specifically Gone in 60 Seconds, because I realized that I like racing movies, and Star Wars opened the door for that.
Dude. When I think about pod racing, I get so jazzed up. But it was Battlefront. If anyone's played Battlefront, it's god awful. I got the Battlefront PS4, so it came with Star Wars Battlefront, and the only fucking good thing about it is the fucking pod racing. So anyway, that's it. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, that's all I have to say about that too.
So anyway, back to Wendigos.
Okay, yeah, Wendigos. Where did we leave off? I gotta remind everybody. Oh, you were talking about M. Night Shyamalan would be a good reality. And I was talking about how they've been mentioned on the New World Frontier before. So, other encounters. These encounters that the missionaries wrote about are corroborated between the native tribes and other white settlers in the area. The beer's making me need to burp, so I'm going to power through it.
Jesus.
Some of these white settlers would write about people in the area descending into fits of madness with no known cause. And the Cree tribe would even kill people as a precaution once they started to flip out because they called it Wendigo psychosis. They didn't call it Wendigo psychosis. They had a different name for it. That's the white name for it.
Mm-hmm.
Forgive me. In these cases, the spiritual healers or shamans of the tribe would take note of someone suddenly behaving violently or antisocially, and they would ceremoniously try to cure them of their ailments. If the symptoms persisted, though, they would be swiftly executed. And it was because time and time again, they would notice this descent would cause the Wendigo psychosis, and it would be bad for the whole tribe. And the scary thing is that most traditions agree that any one of us can become a Wendigo. And this is scarier to me than becoming a zombie. It's on par with a zombie, but like vampires, you know, there's lots of
vampires
monsters.
are cool.
Yeah, there's lots of monsters that we can turn into. Wendigo, I think, is like the most disturbing one because as a vampire, you get like immortality and beauty. You just have to drink blood. Zombies, you're dead. You don't fucking know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Werewolves, you only have to deal with it on a full moon. A Wendigo is more of, I would say, like a trapped in your own body, horrific experience. And it's definitely one of the most interesting cryptids that we've covered to date. So according to the Algonquinian tribe, Wendigos are humans that have had a massive corruption of their spirit, most commonly through greed. In my opinion, though, on like what I read from other tribes, a Wendigo is made when a human is pushed to the very limits of their survival, where they break not physically, but spiritually. So in extreme conditions like hunger, cold, or even sorrow, a cannibalistic Wendigo can be born. And in these times, the person either corrupts so horrifically or their spirit is weakened enough or physically weakened enough that they just become easier to possess by an evil spirit.
I wanted to propose another thought to you, another thought experiment, if you will.
Yeah.
So I feel like this kind of checks out a little scientifically if we want to take a little fun route. So this is either a fever dream or reality where we talked about the Kuru disease.
We did a whole episode on it.
Okay, so I knew it. That can occur from cannibalism, and for those who don't know, or
I'm glad that you wrote that this was a fever dream.
I'm like, I remember this in detail, maybe. Yeah. Or you don't know what my dreams are like. This is either reality or one of those. So
there's times where people will quote what we've said on podcasts, and I'm like, come again? Like, yeah, I wasn't there, ma'am.
I haven't heard of her.
Yeah.
So Kuru is real. and we have talked about it on here already.
It is real.
Great.
It is real.
It's caused by eating human brain. And in this specific case that I'm talking about, this brain was even cooked and prepared with other body parts, herbs, and spices. And kuru means shivering or trembling. People would have trouble walking, lose control of emotions. Many experienced what was called the laughing death. And within a year, they couldn't stand up, feed themselves, or have any control of bodily function. It wasn't a virus or a bacteria, fungus, or parasite. It was an entirely new infectious agent, one that had no genetic material, could survive being boiled, and wasn't even alive. It was a twisted and mutated protein called prion, and it would turn the brain of a person who ingested it into fucking goo. This protein was created, developed, and mutated within the tribes of Papua New Guinea, so it's not a stretch to say that the same type of situation could have developed here. Maybe a new mutation where the protein didn't cause you to die, but turn you into whatever a Wendigo is.
That's really interesting too,
Wendigo.
because with kuru, you don't go crazy until you eat the brain.
Mhm.
And Wendigo psychosis makes you want to eat people before you ever have. But with prions, they're so... We should do a whole episode on them because there's other prions out there that are scary. I wonder if this is like a related prion that makes you crave human flesh
Mhm.
before you've like ever even had it. You know what I mean? And it's
Yeah.
just like a fucking cousin of kuru.
Yeah.
Because
It's
kuru...
literally just a mutation of prion, which is what
Yeah.
created kuru in the
Yeah.
first place. And because kuru is death ritual where you cook and eat brain. And that over time turned into, obviously, like that slow death of debilitation. But it wouldn't be like a stretch to say, because it happened with multiple tribes from north to south in Papua New Guinea. It like spread across and
Yeah.
continued to mutate, that like the same type of reality wouldn't also be happening within like a tribal space.
Yeah.
And it just mutates into a, like, you know, rather than eat the brain, go crazy, make you want to eat the brain.
And that's scary too, because kuru is mad cow disease, is like what we've called it when we see it in other animals when we eat infected brains of cows. It's the cousin of it. So it's not something where it's like, oh, we don't have to worry about this anymore because this affected Native Americans or this affected people in Papua New Guinea. There was a mad cow disease outbreak in England, in what we would call first world civilized countries. And
There
there
was a mad
disease,
cow
like,
outbreak here in the
Yeah.
United States in like the
Yeah.
2010s.
Yes. And that stuff will fuck you up. Like, oh, we should do an episode about prions, because every time like you fall into a rabbit hole of like what's the scariest thing on earth, like I would say prions are the top of the list. People can say getting burned alive, being tortured, prions, because they literally will take over your body and they have no rhyme, reason, or function except to destroy.
Yeah, literally. It's like anytime you see those crazy news stories pop up where it's like, you know, zombie protein infects ant species and controls their dead bodies. Like,
Yeah.
anytime you've seen actual zombies in nature, it's been because of a prion mutation in the brain. And that's happened in people. And it makes very logical sense to me, because if there's anything, even like anthropologically, when you look at native lore and history and storytelling, everything that they're talking about has a link to something that has happened, and you can always find it and trace it. Like, all, like, even if they're talking about some type of like god making a statement, it relates back to like a natural disaster that caused, like, it's always connected to something that is very much in reality. And the Wendigo to me almost sounds like a prion disease that turns a person, which is why they would describe them as like kind of losing their marbles
Yeah.
a little bit. And then they fucking go out into the middle of the wilderness, you know, in the cold of winter, getting all fucked up from frostbite, basically being an animated corpse, you know, looking all crazy and shit, because prions have been known to just control dead bodies and reanimate them, that like this is just that. You know what I mean?
That's crazy because I hadn't even considered the prion thing. I was just going full on possessed by a Wendigo spirit. I didn't even think about the science of it. So how dare
That's
you?
me, baby.
But no, that's like a really good point too. And the amount of stuff that we even do, like anthropologically, you can trace that all the way back. Like I think I've mentioned it before, but like certain religions that don't allow you to eat pork, for example, or like hoofed animals, because you couldn't keep hoofed animals in the desert because the water flow needed to keep the mud going, cost too many calories, and then they would get like rotted feet because you couldn't keep like the water cycle going through, and then bacteria would ferment. So they just made it easier by banning hooved animals. As nothing to do with the religion, it has everything to do with like the fact that it was physically impossible at that time for us to keep those animals.
Practicality.
Yeah, so they became taboo. Similar thing with sex. Like if you have too many sexual partners, then you get STDs or you get different issues where you can't trace the lineage back, right? Mm-hmm. Or if you have a sexual, like things like that become taboo because men wanted to have power and they wanted to know that it was their sperm causing, like their sperm continuing their lineage. Mm-hmm. So women's virtue became a thing because you can trace lineage through women easier than you could through a man. And that's why we have women's virtue. It's all this, like you can trace the stuff back, like
it so that always comes back. Yeah.
You have to have a way to explain these things away. Mm-hmm. And if you explain prions as monsters, you're not wrong in any capacity.
Exactly. And also the way that a prion can manipulate the body would make a real monster. So there are depictions of these like, you know, skinny Krampus, like, that's like a reanimated person.
And you're not going to be affected the way you would normally be in like cold, or your hunger is going to be affecting you differently. Mm-hmm. It does make a lot of sense.
You're welcome.
Good take. So it's interesting too because this has been referenced scientifically in Western medicine, the Wendigo psychosis, but they don't stumble across prions, which is interesting. So you're really onto something. You are a woman before your time, Noelle.
Always am, baby.
So missionary J.E. Sandin was the first to use the term in the 1920s, specifically Wendigo psychosis, while working in a Cree community in the western James Bay area. There he met a woman who claimed that she saw strangers who wanted to kill and devour her, and Sandin referred to the woman's mental condition as a psychoneurosis, or a mental or behavioral disorder characterized by depression and anxiety. Over time, the condition became known as Wendigo psychosis.
Peace and love. As two people who are depressed and anxious, I've never wanted to kill and devour someone, so like maybe she should like, you know, go back to the drawing board on that.
It's scary for me. Let me just say, I will not ever kill and eat someone.
Sure.
I feel like that's a hill I could die on. I would die on a hill before I ate you.
Thank you. Well, I would go on that hill that you died on. I would dig you up and I would eat you.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I will say what's scary is there have been parts of my OCD compulsions, because OCD is like ruminating on thoughts.
Are you about to say you want to eat people?
No, where I have thought that like my loved ones might want to hurt me and eat me, which is like a crazy thing because I'm like, they won't hurt me if I put my deodorant on 10 times plus 5 times plus 2 times.
God, mental illness is truly an incredible thing.
Which is weird. Maybe I have a prion. Maybe I have the opposite of prion. Maybe I detect prions in other people. And then the way I put on my deodorant protects me from them.
I'm going to tell you this right now. The deodorant has nothing to do with it.
It's not hurting. It definitely keeps people away because they see me frantically counting. And if I fuck it up, I have to start over.
I feel like it's hurting the skin of your armpit.
Can we just give Oliver a shout out? Because he does witness some of these things and he will politely wait for me to be done. God bless him, man. If a Wendigo comes for Oliver, I'll slit its fucking throat. I'm telling you right now.
Also, this is a comment to your OCD in particular. How bold and conceited it is to think that anyone wants to fucking eat you when you microwave M&Ms and drink
Who wouldn't want to eat that
all day.
Who wouldn't want to eat that? Look at that booty.
That's how you know mental illness for real, babes.
The psychosis that we can lie to ourselves.
Yeah.
So,
The psychosis thoughts we convince ourselves of.
yeah. Other anthropological explanations, other than mine as an anthropologist, of course, think that part of the origin of the Wendigo is Native Americans seeing Europeans not.
I can't stop thinking about you putting on the.
God, is that funny? I'm sick mentally, down to my core.
Yeah, bitch, we know. I would love to see you put on deodorant like that.
I told you a secret.
How many sticks of deodorant do you go through in a month? Like 7?
Yeah, a lot. But you know what?
Oh my god, I'm crying.
Okay, dry as Ben Shapiro's wife's arid vagina 24/7.
Oh my god,
I tell you.
Oh my god, your little lymph nodes are probably gasping for air in there.
Yeah, I'm probably quite unhealthy, Noelle. Isn't it hilarious? My God. We said we wanted to get through this episode so we could go to bed.
I just
All you want to do is laugh it.
I love that my mental illness is like, maybe you should kill yourself, and yours is just like, never sweat ever in your life.
No, my mental illness definitely tells me to kill myself too, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time.
Good. You're too busy completing these tests.
Yeah, that's so.
Oh my god, I'm fucking
Joke's on you.
out.
It's working. Okay, my God.
Okay, go. Okay, I'm done.
You're not done. Mute yourself. You're awful. So, modern anthropology. I wish I could mute you. I genuinely.
I'm gonna mute myself. I'm gonna drink water.
I'm just gonna look at your
myself.
cackling face. Okay, so she's just laughing on mute, doubled over. Oh my God. This is bullying. I know it is. So she's crying. I gotta get a screenshot of this because this is bullying for real. I can't even look at you. I'm gonna have to move the show notes over your fucking mean face. So, modern anthropologists think that part of the Wendigo origin. Stop moving where I can see you, Noelle. It's mean. So oh my God, I'm gonna get through this sentence. It's the last thing I do. Modern anthropologists think that part
I'm
of
in the
Wendigo.
same spot, you bitch.
I tried to move the picture. So I moved the notes over your face on the Zoom, and right when I did it, you leaned forward in such a way that the part where you weren't sitting, you were immediately occupying.
Oh my god, okay, it's fine. I drank some water, I got it out. Okay, let's do it. Wendigos.
Oh my God. If I don't get through this sentence, I will kill myself. Modern anthropologists think that part of the origin of the Wendigo is that Native Americans witnessed European settlers coming here with no knowledge of how to survive our winters and resorted to cannibalism to survive.
Yeah, like the Donner Party. Well,
Yeah.
peace and love, that's not a bad representation of their story.
And they were
but
like,
also
those
kinda
fucking
is.
idiots. Yeah, they're like, they're idiots. Which is fair and valid. I could see them explaining that away as part of the Wendigo mythos, but we also have to consider that the origin of the Wendigo goes back, like transcending written history all the way into the oral history. So I think this is one's kind of sweeping it under the rug. I'm just mentioning it because I take our credibility seriously. So now let's consider, this part actually was fascinating to me, that Wendigo psychosis is not something that is seen the world over, and it's not even something seen like all throughout the United States. Specifically, it is pretty honed in on the Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada. It doesn't really appear anywhere else outside of those areas.
Yeah, man, prions in a specific geological region.
Well, it's also like seasonal depression meets the flu, where...
That's what you're going to call cannibalism?
Yeah. Wendigo psychosis, you know what I mean? It's like seasonal depression meets the flu.
Yeah.
According again to Legends of America, quote, The initial symptoms are poor appetite, nausea, and vomiting. Subsequently, the individual develops a delusion of being transformed into a Wendigo monster. People who have Wendigo psychosis increasingly see others around them as edible, and at the same time, they have an exaggerated fear of becoming cannibals.
Dude,
And it only happens in that small area.
This is literally just like the opposite, but same, of Kuru. Wow, incredible. We should call someone, let them know we've got a break on the case.
Yeah. I don't know who to call. Let's call the guy
either.
who researched the Fresno Nightcrawlers. He's a good audience.
Call him.
So, and perhaps the most interesting things about Wendigos and the psychosis associated with their transformation is how well it is documented in history. Another quote from a Jesuit priest at a different time than Paul in 1661, historians found, quote, that what caused us greater concern was the intelligence that met us upon entering the lake. Those poor men, according to the report given us, were seized with an ailment unknown to us but not very unusual among the people we were seeking. They are afflicted with neither lunacy, hypochondria, nor frenzy, but have a combination of all these species of disease, which affects their imaginations and causes them a more than canine hunger. It makes them so ravenous for human flesh that they pounce upon women, children, and even upon men like veritable werewolves, and devour them voraciously without being able to appease their glut or their appetite, ever seeking fresh prey, and more greedily the more they eat. This ailment attacked our deputies, and as death is the sole remedy among those simple people for checking such acts of murder, they were slain in order to stay the course of their madness. I know what you're thinking, Noelle. I even typed it into the notes. Now I know what you're thinking, Noelle. With all these accounts from priests, we may as well file all these reports into the fake hysteria category.
I was going to say, because all these reports are coming from priests, maybe we should think it's the M. Night Shyamalan The Village version where they're just being attacked by natives because no one likes them.
Yeah, which could be fair if we didn't have another account that happened a little bit more recently. I would say like the late 1800s is kind of recent.
Oh yeah, recent, just yesterday.
Great-grandparents.
Yeah, 1839, just last week.
So, if this episode was only about the writings of desperate priests trying to survive Canadian winters and trying to flesh out or get rid of natives in the area, I would agree with you that it's kind of sus that these accounts only come from priests. They're not all from priests. And I want to dive into one particular one, which was the case of a Plains Cree trapper named Swift Runner. His Cree name, I'm going to pronounce it once and do my best so that his name isn't whitewashed on this episode, but we are going to call him Swift Runner for the rest of it. It was Kakisan Kuchin, which means
that sounds
runner.
Good.
I think so. I tried. I don't know. Anyway, doing my best here. Public school. So he was born in what we now call Alberta in 1839. And he was a relatively popular father of six who stood an impressive 6 feet tall. And I only said impressive 6 feet tall because in Tombstone, everybody was the size of an infant.
I think back in the day, everyone was short as fuck.
5'0". It was insane.
Yeah.
I stood next to a dress of a teacher at the time, and it came up to my boob.
At least
I could have killed her.
Yeah, we could have killed everyone, dude.
Yeah, they would have shot me with one of their little pellet guns at the OK Corral, and I would have brushed it off like a mosquito.
Caught it with your fucking teeth.
Yeah, I would have caught it with my oversized uterus right now.
Chewing it, spit it back.
And then I would have deflected it with all the deodorant in my armpit.
You just open your armpits and it's ching ching.
Yeah,
like Teflon over here, dude.
So I'm Teflon Donna, baby. So Swift Runner, his life was pretty ordinary at the time. He was educated in Cree traditions and then simultaneously accepted into the more European and white culture too. So he served as a guide for the mounted police. And although he was always described as fairly meek and kind of milquetoast, his exceptional treatment of the traders in the Hudson Bay area and his devotion to his family gave him a very dignified and well-known reputation. So he's just a quiet, good guy. And we all know that that's going to change.
Yeah.
So in the winter of 1878 and 1879, the Canadian frontier experienced a very, very brutal winter. I would imagine that pre really bad global warming that they were awful. It was probably like 2 snowflakes now, unfortunately. But the time was hard on everyone, specifically the Cree people. And despite their close relation with white settlers at the time, Native Americans were not set up for success any way you slice it.
Yeah, no shit.
So it was still better for the Cree tribe to stay where they were rather than kind of venture off and try to just not work with the white man at the time, even though they were hogging resources. But slowly, though, Swift had begun to grow violent towards his other tribesmen and started to get like a very dangerous reputation. So once the winter conditions kind of made everybody huddle in, the elders of the tribe decided that Swift had to have an ultimatum. They told him just essentially, you got to chill out or get out. Mm-hmm. And considering normally these types of behaviors, he would be killed, and he couldn't chill out, he decided to leave with his family. And Swift took them all into an area which held what he thought was a higher chance of survival, despite its distance from the general population. And remember, he was fully educated in Cree tradition, so he did know how to hunt and take care of himself. He wasn't as at the mercy of the Canadian winters of like the white European settlers were at the time. And there weren't really any suspicions that came about until this supposedly devoted family man returned from his winter camp in 1879, sans family. He didn't look starved, but he seemed disassociative. And since he was well known in the area, general inquiries about his wife and children soon gave way to rumors that something seriously wrong occurred. And the local priest specifically suspected something was wrong, especially since the winter had been very fruitful with game, meaning that it didn't make sense for anyone to go through any hardships where they should have lost any member of their family, specifically somebody who was like a Cree hunter and trapper.
Yeah, like he grew up there. It was no big deal. To him, it was no big deal.
And he was way capable. He was like a capable frontierman. Like, this shit was like super easy, I'm assuming, to them. They could just do it, like the mountain men's at the time. He was like a Jeremiah Johnson. So soon after his return, Swift attempted to lead a group of children out of town towards the woods. And that was where the priests had the last straw. They decided
a priest saying that a grown man can't have the little children?
I almost wrote in like pause for priest jokes. I think Jesuit priests are different than Catholic priests, but don't quote me on that.
I think they're all the same, but
probably.
This was the first and last time a priest ever spoke. Yeah. And honestly, it was probably out of jealousy and malice because he wanted them for himself.
Yeah, so the priests were jealous, so they called the cops. And when they reached out to law enforcement, an inspector named Xavier Gagnon, we're just going to call him Severe.
It does look like Severe.
It had like way more accents. I cared less about
accent d'aigu.
Yeah, and I cared less about like maintaining
the French
integrity of French names, so we're just gonna call him Severe. And I don't know
French Canadian to be exact. So like, what even are you?
Worst guy.
Not even French.
Yeah. So this guy. So they reached out to this inspector to look into Swift's behavior, and they really wanted to get into the root of what was going on with him and find out where his family was. So eventually, Swift did kind of begrudgingly admit that one of his sons didn't survive the winter, and he offered to show the police where he was buried.
And they're like, sweet, that explains 1 out of 7 people that we can't account for.
They're like, we'll take it. You know, doing it is a favor for the priest, blah, blah, blah. So along with Inspector Severe and the mounted police, Swift led a small posse to his winter camp and a child-sized grave. So while the cops did uncover the grave and confirm that the boy's body was buried there and it had not been disturbed until they uncovered it, they're actually more concerned with the mass amount of other human remains that were scattered around the camp.
Yeah, that'll do it.
So it didn't take much prodding from the police to get Swift to talk after they pointed out the disturbing decor and that he had left on the camp's landscape. So eventually he did break down and told them the full story. Swift told them how it began for him with a hue of like horrific dreams, just slew upon slew, just bad nightmares every night.
It's giving Luke Skywalker dreaming about Kylo Ren killing him.
Imagine that plus like The Cell with J-Lo. Also
another slept on 5-star with the fucking man Vince Vaughn serving, absolutely serving. Damn, that's a good fucking movie.
So similar to the cinematic perfection that we call the cell,
Mm-hmm.
in his mind, a mysterious monster would come to him and creep through the darkest parts of his mind and slowly take root. And as time passed, it bled more and more into his psyche until Swift realized, even when he was awake, that he was being plagued with the spirit of a Wendigo. And he did fight these thoughts for most of the winter, but he did lose the mental fight against the Wendigo and ate his wife in a murderous frenzy.
Oof. You hate to see it.
It happens. And so, drunk on the flesh of human meat, Swift ordered one of his sons to butcher his younger brother. And as Swift watches go down, I do want to give like a heads up that this next part is rough. Normally what we talk about is rough, but this is like capital rough. He said that the spirit of the Wendigo picked up his baby by the neck with a lodge pole, which is just like a long skewer. And while the baby was held up by its chin alone, Swift reached up with both his hands, grabbed the feet of the baby, and pulled down, thus impaling his son on the skewer.
Giving very much Cannibal Holocaust.
Cannibal Holocaust, like Vlad the Impaler.
Mm-hmm.
This part, it was uncomfortable. Normally stuff isn't like that, but it was just so detailed. I tried to dumb down the details a little bit, but still like convey the horrificness. While Swift did not go into details about the rest of his children's deaths,
he was like, that one looks like you guys had enough, so I'm going to go ahead and pocket the rest.
Yeah, he's like, just put two and two together. He did verbatim say that what happened with his mother-in-law and his brother had been a bit tough, but he didn't specify if he meant the endeavor of killing them was tough or if their meat was tough.
It's for the reader to figure out, you know?
Context.
It's a choose-your-own-adventure part of the story.
And he said it nonchalantly. Like, he was talking about the fucking cell, which is, like I said, cinematic perfection. Like, he just talked about it, and the police were rightfully horrified. Not only did they need to bring this self-professed Wendigo, who they were all fucking scared of, to Fort Saskatchewan, but they also needed to collect all the evidence of his masticated family. And it wasn't until they began to handle the remnants of the bones that they realized that they were all hollow and chewed on, because he would literally pick up the bones, gnaw on them, and then suck out the marrow.
Oh my God, he's like Liver King.
Yeah. So his trial began on August 8th, 1879. And although the Cree did have evidence and lore of the Wendigo that was like available for people to research at the time, obviously his defense of being a Wendigo did nothing to persuade the judge or jury to rule in his favor.
Good.
He was sentenced to death very, very quickly. It was death by hanging. And, fun fact, he was the first legal hanging in Canadian history.
Yeah, legal. Keyword.
Yeah, keyword. And from an article at the time, just before the trap fell, Swift's last words were, "I am no longer a man."
That's a fun one.
Yeah, isn't that neat?
Fun last word.
And it has like a double entendre too. Like, what is a man without his family? Or am I fully taken over by the Wendigo at this point? So they let his body hang for an hour in the snow before somebody was finally brave enough to cut it down and quickly bury it. And one of the police officers present recounted how the man who left for the woods in 1878 was not the same man that he watched hang a year later. Like, he acknowledged that a physical transformation had 100% taken Swift Runner over. And perhaps the most alarming thing to note is that there is no lore on how you can kill a Wendigo once they are full Wendigo. So the Cree elders who saw Swift going down this path and dismissed him into the woods basically just signed the death warrants of Swift's family. There is a reason why other tribes had a cure or be killed policy, and that's because once the psychosis kicks in, no bullet and no spell will protect you. It was only Swift's kind of hybrid transition that he was in that allowed the police to catch him after he had already eaten his fill.
Oh, that is interesting. The lore about how to kill a Wendigo doesn't exist. That's such a good point.
It's scary. You have to kill them before they fully transition, but then it's are you killing a Wendigo, or are you just killing somebody who's sick, or are you killing somebody who's starving, or you know what I mean? Are you killing somebody with some other mental illness that has nothing to do with Wendigo? It's very pearls before swine. I don't know what that
Yeah.
means, but I think that's the right.
That sounded nice. I'm just going to believe you.
Thank you. And there's
Wow.
a picture of him. He
Yeah.
looks like a regular guy.
Yeah, he just looks like a guy.
He just looks like a guy. Scary, right?
Very scary. I like it.
Yeah, me too. So I like the prion take.
Yeah, I feel like it makes the most sense scientifically.
I agree. I like the idea that the being put in like desperate situations can also trigger like a Wendigo spirit to possess you, because if you're starving to death and you have to eat somebody to survive, some may call that the Donna Reed party. Other people may call it Wendigo psychosis. Like, it's very interesting. I didn't realize how prevalent it was in medicine, though. I didn't know that Wendigo psychosis was something that modern psychology has referred to, even in like the 1940s, which I know is like kind of a long time ago, but at the same time, it's early enough to be relevant.
Well, especially when you look at it in the timeline of things, like the 1630s to the 1940s, Wendigo psychosis, or the takeover of the Wendigo, possession of the Wendigo being a thing, like that's a long time.
Yeah.
So.
You're just giving a name to something that is very valid. That does exist. I will not argue that Wendigos exist. I think they 100% exist. What you choose to define as a Wendigo is up to you. The thing I thought was most fascinating was the louder the scream, the further you are. I loved that. That was so scary, because if it's fate, it means it's right next to you.
Yeah, true skill of the hunter. Trick ya. Trick ya. Well, fun. Now we know.
Yep.
And also now we know to watch The Village and The Cell.
The Village, The Cell, Constantine, the Star Wars prequels.
Absolutely. I mean, if you buried me with all of those, it would be my own little King Tut's tomb.
And just to round it off to like a nice 5, you can substitute in either Signs or The Sixth Sense.
I would agree with that as well.
Just we'll let you have your choice on that.
I'm gonna like go watch The Cell. Man, I'm just thinking about it. Just visually beautiful.
It's
Anyway,
J-Lo for sure.
You know, that's the thing, is just like how everyone gave The Village shit because it was like, oh, another M. Night Shyamalan twist formula. No one gave The Cell any chance because it was fucking J-Lo and Vince Vaughn. No one
my heart.
cared.
Yeah, no one cared. Show me a J-Lo movie other than Geely. But like fucking Made in Manhattan.
Great.
Classic. What's the other one? The Wedding Planner?
I was going to say The Wedding Planner.
Masterpiece. People hate too much. Do you notice that? They hate too much. I hate them for hating. Let people enjoy things.
Also, Hustlers that came out was new and good. That was the one with like the strippers who scam men.
I haven't
But the
seen
one
it.
we're not talking about, which is the best one, Enough, baby.
Oh,
Enough.
Jennifer in Enough. I call her Jennifer.
Yeah, you
Let
guys
me
are
know
close.
that murdering bastards is pure feminism.
Also, like, so The Cell came out in 2000. Enough came out in 2002. And Enough was like one of the first representations of like a dude who love bombs you so that he could then just get away with abusing you.
Yeah.
What a good fucking movie, man.
And the prevalence of like, even if you leave or even if you do everything right, like you can still fall victim to it.
God, it's so fucking good. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna put that in there. I'm gonna say, take off Signs.
Take off
Or
the
The Sixth
optional
Sense.
Signs or Sixth Sense and
Put
it in.
Enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's everyone's homework. Let us know how you feel. Also, speaking of homework, you can follow us on Instagram. I'm at Noelle Fain. That is at Sithlard, and this is Go to Hell Podcast on Instagram and Twitter. In all of our social media bios, you'll find a link tree that'll take you to our Patreon, where you get a new episode Every week, $1 gets you in, but remember that you do sign an NDA, so you cannot repeat anything that you see there.
Please don't.
Please do not. In that link tree, you will also see links to our merch site, links to our Discord server, which is always on and poppin', our Facebook group, and of course the magnificent Kelly Halloran or Wildwood Owl on Etsy's page that has our sticker packs and enamel pin. So check all that out.
Yeah, thank you so much to people who reached out to me about Tombstone, and thank you for our Patreon people, and thank you for people who keep sending in their synchronicities.
I very much love it. Talk to us, hang out.
Yeah, alright, well, I guess that's it. I guess
Hail Satan. Hail Satan.
Hail. I don't have one. Hail the beer that got me through the episode.
There you go. Hail also your armpits.